Well, first of all, I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you, Karen. I've been working for Everglades National Park for almost 20 years.
Wow.
I'm originally from Argentina, and I've been in South Florida for 38, I believe. I lost count. I love the Everglades. It's a beautiful park, and I have to be thankful to Karen for the invitation, because I'll be honest with you, I knew about Royal Palm, the history and everything, but thanks to this presentation I had to do my homework a lot better, and I learned a lot. And I got more books, and I'm so excited. I keep buying more books about history now, so I have to say thank you. So one of the things I have to say, I'm not a historian, and I notice a lot of times with things that I read, there are some contradictions on the dates. Maybe a year here, a year there. So it may be some things that don't match exactly, but it's kind of a general idea. And I don't know, how many of you have been to Everglades National Park? Okay, a lot of you. Nice, okay, that's a nice thing. In case you're not too familiar, I give everybody a map because I want everybody to locate Homestead, Florida City, and Royal Palm. So, Homestead, right here, right across from the Dante Faceo Visitor Center in Biscayne National Park, you're going to find Homestead. Everybody found it? Not yet. Yep. Homestead. Let me show you again. Oh, right there. Right there. And Royal Palm and Hinga Trail, that's the Royal Palm Visitor Center. Okay. And Flamingo. Flamingo is easy. By the end of the road. Okay? So a little bit of, so you guys kind of understand a little bit of where the presentation is going, kind of situation, because if I start throwing, places and you're not familiar with them, it may be a little confusing. So anyways, let's start with the presentation. The history of Royal Palm, which is considered the heart of the Everglades. Okay? How many of you have been to Royal Palm? No? No, interesting. Maybe I should bring with a bus next time and take you out.
Yes, road trip.
So that yellow, kind of yellow line over there, and do you guys recognize that from the map?
Yes.
It's red in the map. That is the park main road. So basically from the entrance to the park, if you follow that line all the way to the end, you end up in Flamingo. But one of the things that happens when you look at a map, and this is kind of the part that I love, you start to look at a map and you start to discover there is history in that map. Let me show you this.
Turn the lights down. Can you turn the lights down, please? It's kind of hard because we're trying to video it, so. Oh, never mind. Yeah. That's just.
So this yellow line kind of follows. Now it's a lot better. So that line kind of follows a waterway. Let me take it out with my pointer. So you see, this is kind of a waterway when you look at it. Okay? Now that is a road. And this is the other part of the road. That's the old road to Flamingo. That used to be called Old Ingham. And here is a tree island. It's what we call a hardwood hammock. I don't know if you are familiar with it is. It's a tree island. It's an elevation in the middle of the Sawgrass Prairie. We find these tree islands called hardwood hammocks, and that's a pretty big one. And that's what was called Paradise Key. And Paradise Key was this island in the middle of the Everglades, very hard to get to. Not many people knew about it. And according to what I read, the Indians, the Miccosukis and the Seminoles, the Native Americans, they knew about this island. There was a gentleman by the name of Kirk Monroe that used to explore South Florida through the water because there was no roads in the Everglades. So most of the exploring was going through the water. Florida Bay, Gulf of Mexico, that's how people got around. And apparently there was a sick child that needed attention. And Kirk Monroe carried a first aid kit with him all the time. And the Native Americans asked him to go to Paradise Key to help with this kit. And that's how Kirk Monroe learned about Paradise Key. And one of the things that made Paradise Key very famous was the royal palms. Look at all these tall royal palms. Look, so many of them. So people started to learn about royal palm. It started to be more and more popular. And botanists and conservationists, they started to explore. Naturalists, they started to explore the island. There was a huge variety of plants there. Bromeliads, what we call hardwood trees like oaks, mahogany, palms, all kind of plants. And people started to go and explore more and more. But unfortunately, also, people started to go hunting or collecting. Anybody familiar with the tree snails? You familiar with the tree snails? Tree snails are a beautiful snail. It has a beautiful pattern. And what happened is that every hardwood hammock has a different pattern. So people used to collect them. And I don't know if it's true, that they used to burn the hammock after they collect the trees, so nobody else would have them. So they would collect the snail, the tree snail, and then burn the hammock. Like I said, I don't know if that's true or not. It's a lot of rumors, and I'm not a historian. And the other thing that we're doing, they were collecting orchids and bromeliads, and they were taking them, carloads of orchids and bromeliads. Also, the railroad was coming to South Florida. Flagler was going south with the railroad. They were trying to drain the Everglades because they want to sell the land. So they were trying to drain the Everglades. Logging. There was a lot going on in the Everglades. So at the time that this was happening, these groups of ladies, in 1891, they formed what it was called the Housekeepers Club. Now it's called the Women's Club of Coconut Grove. But it was called the Housekeeper Club. And these ladies decided to create this group, like you guys. It's nice to have a group that you identify with, for social events. But also, they had interest of helping different causes. And one of the things that they did in 1905, they hosted the 10th annual convention of the Florida Federation of Women's Clubs. And these two ladies, Mary Barb Monroe, which was the wife of the person that found the island, and Edith Gifford, they presented a resolution to try to conserve Royal Palm as a state reservation. So think about it, this is in 1905. And these ladies had the idea that it was important to preserve this Paradise Key because of the importance and all the destruction that was going around. it wasn't until 1914 when Maryman Jennings, she was the president of the Federation, and she had a lot of power. I don't know if you guys have heard about Maryman Jennings, but she was the wife of the governor, ex-governor at this time. But she was the wife of the governor. She was the daughter of a politician. She really knew how to work the things around. So she was able to push for the park a little stronger. And her husband was the one that wrote the document that were presented to the legislation for the creation of Royal Palm State Park. And finally, in 1915, the state of Florida donated 960 acres to create the park. And Flagler's widow donated the other 960. Flagler had a lot of land. If you have read about how he was building the railroad, the state was giving him land. It's like, this land, it's not worth it, just have it. So he had a lot of land. So they were they were trying to develop, he was bringing the railroad all the way to Key West, but when he died, his widow decided to, help with the creation of the Royal Palm State Park and donated 960 acres. So in 1915, the Mother Land Company, which actually is a company that managed the land that Flagler had, that was the company, one of the companies that Flagler had, was managing the land, and they built the road to Florida City, from Florida City to Paradise Key. Remember when we look at Homestead, next to Homestead was Florida City to Paradise Key. Look at that beautiful road. So look at this. When we complain about the, I-95 and the Palmetto and the Turnpike, imagine having to drive through there. So the dedication of the park was in November 23rd, 1916.
What was Everglades Park established? 1947. Oh, so this was first.
This was first, yes. So that was the dedication of Royal Palm State Park. The ladies, the women's club, they offered a picnic. There was more than 100 cars, like 150 cars, 800 people. Yes, they went in that road. One of the things, I guess, in November is the dry season, so hopefully it was a little drier. But they made it for the dedication. And when you look at the picture here, there's two people there. Maryman Jennings and Ingham. Let me get my pointer. J.E. Ingham. This is the person that they actually dedicated the highway later, his name. And this is Maryman Jennings. So the ladies needed somebody to take care of the park. Now they had the park, but people were still trying to get orchids and bromeliads and snails. So they hired a warden. Charles Monsieur, he was the warden of the park, but he had to live in a tent because there had no facilities there. So him and his family lived in a tent in the middle of the Everglades. Hopefully they didn't do it in the summer, until the lodge was built. Yes. But the ladies, they had no money. The state gives them the land, but they give them no money. So they needed to constantly try to raise funds. You may be familiar with this, maybe. So one of the things that they did is, Maryman Jennings, she did this campaign that gave every member a ruler to put dimes to help. They were trying to raise $6,000. And that's how they raised the money to build the lodge. The other thing Monsieur was doing was planting royal palms. He was planting palms to sell them. That was another way that they were trying to make money. And here is the lodge. Finally, 1917, poor Monsieur and his family were able to get out of the tent and move to the lodge. That's a beautiful lodge. And in 1917, the Florida Federation of Women Club meeting happened in the Royal Palm Lodge. So that was a nice event that they had there. And a couple people here, that is Mary Var Monroe there, and that is Maryman Jennings. The two important ladies that kind of push for this park to happen. It may be. I'm not too sure, but it may be, yeah. This is the interior of the lodge. And this is kind of hard to get to the lodge. Imagine trying to drive to the lodge and having to go through this. This is on top of Taylor's Slough. Remember that water that is one of the areas that gets flooded? Now the park road has a bridge over it, but this is kind of what they had to do there. But anyways, even though it was hard to get there, the lodge was becoming very popular with artists, with naturalists that went, and the ladies were taking care of the lodge. Another way, the state actually gave them more land, more than 2,000 acres more. And here is a little bit of what the advertising for the Royal Palm State Park. If you want to stay there, it's telling you what is available. So, like I said, it was very popular. Many people were enjoying going to the lodge. One of the things that happened in the Everglades is we have fires, natural fires, and that was an issue that threatened the Royal Palm, the Paradise Key, and the Royal Palm Lodge. So actually, it was Fairchild, I believe, that suggested that they build a moat around the lodge to protect it. $25,000. How do we get $25,000? So when actually they hired Mr. Simpson, that designed a medal, beautiful medal, that they sold to collect money. And I don't know if you guys can read it, but it says there, you help to protect Royal Palm from fire. And there were 5,000 tokens produced, and I guess it worked because they collected the money. Here is a little envelope, a little brochure that says that they needed this money to protect the park and the lodge from the fire. In 1922, look at that road. Beautiful road to Flamingo. So they finally gave them some money, $2,500 a year. They finally give them some money to maintain the park, and then complete the road to Flamingo. So like I say, when we complain about our highways, I think we have to think about this. So that was what they called the Ingham Highway, 41 mile long, bumpy and flood. So it wasn't a really good road, but it was the first time there was a road to get to Flamingo. Instead of going by the water, they were able to somehow drive there. In 1925, Ernest Cove moved to Miami. Ernest Cove was a landscape architect. He actually grew up in Connecticut, and he loved the outdoors. And he moved to Miami with his wife in 1925. And he started exploring the Everglades. In 1926, he had a bad timing to move to Miami. 1926, the hurricane, the Miami hurricane. These are pictures of Miami just to show the destruction of that hurricane. 1926. So
The first picture, is that,
a boat.
they had high rises then?
Yes, and it's amazing when I look at the pictures of Miami that I was surprised of how big. Yes, I was surprised of how many buildings were already. So this is kind of the way that the hurricane went. As you can see, it went through South Florida and caused a lot of destruction. And of course, it damaged the park. So they had a water tower that was destroyed. There were trees blocking the trails. 70 of the royal palms were blown over. The lodge had issues with the floors and the roof, and the fireplace needed repair. So the poor ladies, every time they were like, now I have some money, something happened. So by this time, Ernest Coe and Fairchild were very interested in promoting the creation of a national park. They wanted to create a national park here in South Florida. There were especially Coe, but there was a lot of support in South Florida from people that wanted to protect the Everglades by creating a national park. So they actually created this group, the Everglades National Park Association. And in 1929, they invite a committee to come and look at the Everglades to see what they thought, if they would support the creation of a national park here in South Florida. And they did go in this tour. The lady in black there is Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. It was Horace Albright, he was the first director of the National Park Service. He was in the trip. Ernest Coe with the light suit. So they all went over the Everglades, and they liked it. They decided that it was a good idea to create the national park and protect this area. In 1933, Maryman Jennings was able to get the CCC to come to Royal Palm and help with different projects. So they came and they helped with the trails. They built some structures that are no longer there, like this fire tower, and it was a garage. Those two are no longer there. But the lily pond is still there. If you go to Royal Palm and you walk the Gumbo Limbo Trail, at the end you pass through a little pond there. That's part of the lily pond. And also hiding, very hard to find, I still have trouble trying to find it, is a little building that was a deer feed station. That's the little building, it stays there, it's still there, just hard to find it. And these are a couple of postcards about the lodge. Look a beautiful building, the inside, some of the trails. In 1938, they hired Dan Beard to do a study of the Everglades to see, to continue with the idea of creating the national park. And this is what he co-proposed. And I want you to look at the area. This is what they wanted. Okay, this is what they want the national park to be. Included the keys, included what is part of Biscayne National Park today, included what is Big Cypress National Preserve. This is what they wanted. This is what Coe knew that we needed to maintain the Everglades ecosystem. unfortunately, what we got is this. This is what we got. This was not part of the park. This was not part of the park. This was not part of the park. The Royal Palm State Park was donated by the Florida Federation of Women's Club to be part of Everglades National Park. And here are the ladies donating. This is the plaque when they donated the park to be part of the Everglades National Park. And this was in October 1947. Okay? So it went a lot of years from when the park was proposed to when they agreed to create it to when it really happened. Many, many years. It was hard to get the land because the federal government said, oh, yes, you can have your park, but I'm not paying for any land. You have to figure it out. And there was a lot of people that didn't want to sell the land. They didn't want to. And it was very hard to get the land. You know, remember that people were trying to build. They were trying to use the land for agriculture. They were, logging. There was a lot of interest in the land. So it was hard to get the land for the park. But this is the dedication. Finally, December 6, 1947, Everglades National Park was dedicated in Everglades City. Look at that crowd. A lot of people went to that dedication. Here is President Truman dedicating the park. And that is Dan Beer, the first superintendent of Everglades National Park. And here is Ernest Cole. He almost didn't go. He was so upset because he didn't get the park that he wanted. So he was very, very upset. But I guess he went and he got a plaque. And here is Maryman Jennings. She was, part of the whole process of protecting the park and creating Everglades National Park. She went for the, I don't know. So after more than 40 years, finally Paradise Key was protected. And the highest level of protection when it's a national park. So the ladies, Mary Bar Monroe, Edith Cliff Gifford, and Maryman Jennings, they were the ones that were able to start this process. And thanks to them, we do have Royal Palm as part of the Everglades National Park. So what a vision. Okay? Any questions? Thank you for listening.